Madison, Houda, thank you very much for being here and in this CIO Summit. And the mic is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Paulo. Hola a todos y gracias para estar con nosotros para esta presentación sobre el futuro del trabajo, the future of work, and more specifically, the rise of what we call the home office hub. So my name is Houda. I lead Globaldata's Europe, Middle East, and Africa telecom practice. And with me, I have my colleague, Madison Tester, who has led the development of this research. But a quick introduction before we start on Globaldata. We are a market research and consultant company. We have been in the industry for more than 20 years through several brands. And today we have practices covering more than 16 industry verticals, including technology, financial services, but also construction, healthcare, retail, oil and gas, and so on. So today, in this presentation, we are going to walk you through the key trends that are shaping the future of work and that have specifically compounded the rise of what we call the home office hub. We will also talk extensively about the key ICT solutions that have supported this dynamic and that are top of mind for CIOs in order to support employees and ensure business connectivity and continuity. So now, first, let's step back a little and talk about the concept of the home office hub and how this hub has been strengthened by the global pandemic. So as COVID-19 hit, both employees and employers had to shift to working from home overnight, literally, giving rise to the home office hub. This hub really sits at the intersection of the office, the home, and school. So it converges or aggregates the needs of each hub simultaneously, from entertainment to learning, and more importantly, in our context today, working remotely from home in a seamless and secure manner. So when the pandemic started, employers were faced with the challenge of extending their networks to each employee's home, while at the same time providing a secure connectivity, secure collaboration tools that are necessary to maintaining the business workflows. Enterprises have had to adapt with an unprecedented speed to these radically changing ways of doing business, both internally with their employees and colleagues, but most importantly, externally when engaging with clients. And as a result, digital transformation within enterprises, digital transformation efforts were sped up by COVID-19 and by the remote working dynamic. Solutions like connectivity, cloud, virtualization, unified communication, cybersecurity, VPNs were among the rising requirements and enablers for this new home office hub. So in the next slides, I would like to really look specifically at connectivity, at home broadband. COVID-19 has strengthened the need for and brought in a very good appreciation of better broadband connectivity, high quality, reliable, secure, high speed broadband. The whole world moved home overnight for work, school, and entertainment. And this has created immense strain on home broadband networks. Not only the employee had to adjust to working from home, but also in many cases, the employee had to fight for bandwidth with other people and family members in the household that were using broadband to learn remotely or to stream videos or for e-gaming. So this has created a great pressure on telecom operators and ISP fixed and mobile networks. So if we take the case of Mexico, for instance, we can talk about the example of Easy Telecom, who reported a 40% increase in data traffic during the lockdown period. In France, another example is Orange France, where the telecom operator reported a 30% increase on their fixed internet traffic only 2 weeks into the first lockdown in March. So these new home office dynamics have prompted the need for broadband solutions. And as a result, telecom operators and ICT providers in general have stepped up to provide high-speed solutions. So just to give you an idea of where we were in 2020 in terms of residential broadband penetration of households, we put together this graph for you. So if you look at the vertical bar charts, these represent the evolution of the number of home broadband subscriptions per region and globally. So you can see Latin America, for instance, in yellow. Then the lines represent the residential broadband penetration of households. So the blue line stands for the global penetration, and then Mexico is in orange. So as you can see, really, 2020 saw a substantial increase in demand for home broadband globally. So the number of global broadband subscriptions jumped to 1.12 billion for households in 2020. And the penetration levels of households increased as well. So if you take Mexico as an example, broadband penetration of households took 6 + 6 percentage points in just 1 year, reaching 56% in 2020. So really, in response to this surge in demand for good quality broadband, a number of telecom operators have accelerated their broadband and fiber network rollouts. We've seen also governments stepping up their national broadband plans. And a number of governments have also dedicated special funds and voucher schemes to help small and medium businesses upgrade their broadband subscriptions to higher speeds and more reliable solutions. So in the future, all these initiatives will further support fixed broadband penetration of households and of businesses going forward, with a number of global residential broadband subscriptions reaching 1.4 billion in 2025. And residential broadband penetration of households in Mexico, for instance, will reach 77% by the end of the forecast period, up from 56% today. So now I would like to come back to my colleague, Madison, in order to ask. So here we saw a real surge in demand for broadband that is really and has been the backbone supporting remote working during these difficult times. So Madison, what are the specific broadband features? And if you look more broadly, the other ICT solutions that our audience here needs to keep in mind in light of these new working dynamics?
Great. Thank you, Houda. So these new home office dynamics have really prompted the need for other supporting ICT solutions. So here we summarized a sample list of solutions supporting the home office hub for remote working purposes. First, we have the fixed broadband connectivity, as my colleague Houda mentioned. Reliable, fast, strong, and secure fixed broadband is the foundation for making remote working and the home office hub possible. There has been an increased appreciation for high-speed fixed broadband since the lockdowns, which has led consumers to adopt fiber lines or 4G and 5G fixed wireless access devices. In some cases, employees have 2 home broadband routers, with one as a backup for their wired broadband line should it lose its connectivity to ensure business continuity. With the increased demand on home broadband, smart Wi-Fi and mesh technology can also be used to bring that broadband to all corners of the house, supporting the demands of the home office hub for all of the players, all of the people at home, learning, working, and consuming entertainment at home. Mobile connectivity can also be used for the remote worker by providing flexible connection that is not dependent on location. So devices like MiFis or wireless hotspots allow employees to connect to 3G, 4G, or 5G networks anywhere. They can also use these devices to work from home, just to bring stronger connectivity and additional assurance that they can always be connected. So the home office requires employees to have access to all of the appropriate devices that they would have once had access to in an office environment, things like laptops and monitors and tablets. So ICT providers have offered devices as a service in a managed solution type format that ensures the safety and the security of devices, in some cases with the devices already having cybersecurity solutions installed. Smart home solutions are good additions to the home office hub, with people spending more time at home during the lockdowns. So in particular, smart home security solutions can be beneficial to secure the new and expensive office devices that are now being kept at home. In addition, we have communication and collaboration platforms like Zoom, Slack, and Microsoft Teams, which saw a surge in their users in response to the remote working, as their platforms were used not only for working, but also for learning and socializing. For example, Microsoft Teams reported an increase of 12 million users in just 1 week in March 2020, when lockdowns were first being put in place, reaching 44 million users. Remote access to enterprise networks is a key to being able to allow and support the home office hub. Employees need to have secure and quick access to their enterprise networks. So enterprises have utilized VPNs, cloud, and Sd-Wan technologies to bring the remote access securely to the home office hub. So with the use of each of these supporting digital solutions, cybersecurity becomes a priority. In fact, cybercrime has increased during the shift to remote working, with more digital vulnerability points with a lot of these additional digital solutions. And finally, cloud and edge computing can enable employees the computing power and storage necessary to complete their work from home without physically having access to some of the expensive and cumbersome computing devices that they may have used back in the office. So I've highlighted some of the main solutions supporting the home office hub, but one question comes to mind: who should pay? Should the residential or the enterprise customer pay for these solutions? In fact, we found that we saw a bit of a mixture. So I'll pass it over to Houda to tell us a little bit more about this dynamic.
Thank you, Madison. This is indeed a critical questions for CIOs, for enterprises, and for consumers as well. Who should pay? Where will the money come from for these solutions? So the home office hub has really blurred the lines between the B2B and residential ICT solutions. So in this new normal, B2B solutions are being used at home for both work and non-work purposes as well. So if you take the example of unified communication and collaboration platforms like Zoom, we use it for work, but we also use it for socializing with family, with friends. And on the other side, employees are also using their residential ICT solutions to enable their work, for instance, their broadband lines. So maybe an element of response, I would say, to this question of who should pay is to look at the area of application of the different solutions. For example, a strong home broadband connection will benefit the employee not only during his working hours, but also outside of work for entertainment, home learning, and so on. A VPN or Sd-Wan solution, however, will be mainly used to access the corporate network. And as such, enterprises maybe should be paying for that type of solutions. But then where does 4G, 5G fixed wireless access fits. It can be used for entertainment, but it also can provide employees with a backup connectivity when their fixed broadband at home is not strong, or when they are sharing their bandwidth with other household members. So companies can, for instance, deploy fixed wireless devices to provide a dedicated business connection. Or also, we've seen a number of telecom operators bring in new broadband packages with 2 broadband lines, one dedicated for entertainment and home use, and the other one dedicated for work. So to go back to the fixed wireless example, here we have maybe an example from a telecom operator in Myanmar called Ooredoo, which provides a fixed wireless device with 8 gigabit of data per day that works only during work hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. After that, the connection is automatically shut down. So maybe employers can deploy this kind of solutions to support their employees while ensuring that the connection is only used during working hours. So as the home office dynamic is expected to remain in the future, and my colleague Madison will walk you through a survey that Globaldata has deployed among employees and enterprises on the future of work, the lines between B2B and residential solutions will remain blurred. So ICT providers will continue to grapple with who to target with their solutions for the home office, the enterprises, consumers, or a mixture of both opportunistically. Some operators will continue to approach the home office by treating the residential segment as an SME to meet their evolving needs. Some other ICT providers will continue to target the B2B and residential segments with similar products, but bundled in different packages, bundled in tailor-made, customized packages to each segment. And providers in general will also continue and will need, actually, for those who haven't done it, will need to adjust their B2B products, ICT products, in order to adopt an on-demand, pay-per-use strategy, because we're seeing a lot of enterprises now seeking that as their budgets are constrained. So they don't want to pay or commit to paying for the next 2 years or next year. So they want a pay-per-use model, which is on demand, especially that some of their solutions, which are often or used to be deployed on premises in the office, are not used today as frequently as before. So flexibility will be of paramount importance in the future. Now, for the next section, we want to add more flavor to key ICT solutions that enterprises are deploying to support the home office hub. So we picked 3 of these that also need to be top of mind for CEOs, and that my colleague Madison will run you through.
Great. So the first solution I would like to discuss, or a selection of solutions, are those that support access to remote networks. So like I mentioned briefly before, with the rise of the home office hub came this pressing need for employees to be able to remotely access enterprise networks. So ICT solutions like VPNs, SD-WAN, and cloud services can help facilitate remote access to enterprise networks and applications securely. VPNs are cost-effective options that can be used to connect employees to the office network from any location, and they add an added level of security to protect the enterprise network. VPNs have been deployed by enterprises for a while. They're not new technology with the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are a little bit more of a cost-effective option. SD-WAN is a more expensive option that treats each employee location as an office branch in the corporate network. So it can also improve network performance, and it helps organizations remain agile. So SD-WAN adoption in particular, we've seen an increase in adoption since the onset of COVID-19. In 2020, the global Sd-Wan market was worth $3.3 billion and is only going to continue to grow, which you can see there on our Globaldata forecast. So for most enterprises, though, there will likely be a balance between the solutions that they deploy to support remote work. So the majority of employees will not need the advanced connectivity that's delivered by Sd-Wan. Most day-to-day operations and applications like Microsoft Office 365, Zoom, and Salesforce can all be supported by most home broadband connections and VPNs. However, more senior employees that need to access and perform data-heavy processes that require more computing power, say doing design work or delivering and creating media content, the investment in Sd-Wan may be more worthwhile. Next, I'll talk a bit about communication and collaboration tools. So as I mentioned before, we saw skyrocketing usage in response to remote working, remote learning, and socially distanced socializing. Zoom reported that in fiscal year 2020, they saw an 88% increase in their revenue to $623 million. Enterprises were already using their own communication and collaboration tools for internal communication and some external business interactions. But the shift to remote working during the COVID-19 pandemic stretched the limits of and the functionality of those solutions. So a new wave of communication and collaboration platforms emerged. This new wave of team collaboration platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Office 365, Slack, Cisco WebEx, and Google Workspace, with their new functionalities, have combined the communication aspects of unified communication in a more centrally integrated way that includes the group chat and segmented chat rooms like Teams, and better web and video conferencing capabilities and application sharing. So unified communication and collaboration platforms were adapted for not just internal use, but also for external use, like for sales pitches and client interaction and presentation. You can see here the Globaldata communication and collaboration forecast shows that the market was worth $45.4 billion in 2020 and is going to continue to see a strong growth through to 2024. So cybersecurity ties hand in hand to the other digital solutions we've mentioned that support the home office hub. 2020 has indeed seen a rise in cybercrime with remote working, increasing points of vulnerability, and as well as inexperienced users adjust to a new virtual and digitally connected working environment. For example, Zoom bombing emerged as a new term and trend in 2020 as cyber criminals sought to interrupt corporate and private meetings. But since then, Zoom has addressed that issue and added security. But enterprises and employees need to ensure that their enterprise networks and their home networks are secure, even with the additional digital solutions making remote working and the home office hub possible add additional vulnerability points. So cybersecurity really does need to be built into each solution deployed, like unified communication and collaboration, remote networks, devices as a service, which can be done through the use of managed security services provided by ICT providers. And enhanced security and compliance features will become more prominent within collaboration solutions and home working and remote working solutions going forward as remote working continues to be the norm. And the Globaldata cybersecurity forecast here really demonstrates that market growth. So I'll follow up with a few Globaldata surveys. So in 2020, the world scrambled to rapidly adapt to remote working and the home office hub during the pandemic. The question now is, how will work look moving forward? Flexible working and enhanced internal collaboration were emerging trends already at the beginning of 2020, but they are now hardwired into enterprises as they look forward to life post-pandemic and work post-pandemic. So Globaldata's research indicates that a high percentage of enterprises expect that home working will be common even after the pandemic. So one survey that I have here of remote workers who were previously working full-time in offices found that 44% of them want to continue to work in a hybrid environment, meaning working partly remotely and partly in the office after the pandemic, while 22% of the participants wanted to remain working remotely full-time. Another Globaldata survey that I have here provided additional insight into what a hybrid working environment would look like that employees would prefer. So 30% of the participants responded that they wanted to return to the office on a daily basis. 20% preferred to return weekly, and 14% only wanted to return when required by management. So it really is clear that the employee preference is for a working environment that includes both remote work and limited in-office work. So one fear that employers had at the beginning of the shift to home working was that remote working would have a negative impact on productivity levels. And as it turned out, those fears were not true, and there are even suggestions that home workers are happier and even more productive. So one Globaldata survey that you can see here asked participants about productivity while working from home. And the majority of respondents saw an increased or equal level of productivity levels, with 27% reporting significantly increased productivity levels while remote working. And these productivity levels have been made possible by the technology solutions we talked about today and have been reported by other industry professionals in a Globaldata survey. And this survey of 77 B2B industry professionals found that cybersecurity and cloud computing were expected to play significant roles in the company's survival of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we know is that employees want to continue working from home in a hybrid environment, and productivity is not sacrificed, and that the solutions that we mentioned today can support this continued remote working. So all of this has led enterprises to turn greater attention to their long-term digital transformation strategies that allow for the continuance of the home office hub. And with that, I'll turn it over to Houda to conclude.
Thank you, Madison. So here, really, in a nutshell, the home office trend is expected to continue post-COVID-19, providing lasting opportunities for ICT providers and a number of critical considerations for CIOs. First, the future of work looks like a hybrid working environment instead of a full-time return to the office. Second, ICT solutions such as high-speed broadband, cybersecurity, cloud services, UC&C, and remote networks will still need to be top of mind for CIOs. Third, a need for flexible commitment periods and pay-as-you-go, on-demand solutions will be needed to address SMEs' budget constraints and the new reality for businesses. And last, the blurring line between B2B and residential in terms of who pays for these ICT solutions will still be on the agenda. So ICT providers and CIOs will need to keep that question into and under close consideration. And this ends our session, and I would like to, Paulo, maybe open the floor for Q&A if there are any questions.
Yes, sure. First, thank you both. It's very interesting what you presented. I like the way of, I think the future it's the mix. People, I saw the survey you put, there's people that never wants to go back to the office. But I think, if we put an average, I think people would love to have a mix. I'm surprised in one of the surveys that Madison presented, I see a 20% decrease in productivity. what do you see in why do you think, someone's, put that answer of decrease on productivity?
Maggie, I think that's slide number 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a 17% reported a significant decrease in productivity and 19% a decrease. I think that some of this does come from being able to access appropriately what you need to work, whether that's your remote network, your enterprise network, or just becoming more comfortable with some of the digital solutions that we mentioned. Some employees haven't had to use this, or maybe they don't have the connection at home to support working from home. Not to mention just the added pressure of sharing your bandwidth with everyone else in the home. So I do think that the biggest takeaway, though, was that the majority of the participants said that productivity was not changed, if not increased during time from working at home.
And I think you need to add the kids and the dog and the neighbors and everything.
Exactly.
It could affect productivity, but I think the mix is very important. I have some questions here in the chat. So the question is, maintain home office connections consume bandwidth for the internet connections for the business goals. How the business will deal that investment?
Pardon me, could you repeat the question quickly?
Yeah. So maintaining home office connections consume bandwidth for the internet, no? For the business goals. So you talk about, how the business will deal with that investment. I see the question maybe is, who's going to pay what?
Who's going to pay for what? Yeah, that's a very important question indeed. So, today most of the employees have been using their really home broadband to connect to the network, whilst the employer would provide the secure VPN that comes on top. But going forward, would that still be the case? So we have seen, for instance, some solutions from telecom operators where you have broadband packages with multiple lines that enterprises can deploy for their remote workers. It needs to be clearly accounted for in the budget, especially if the line of work requires access to data-hungry, high-performance connectivity and networks. So in which case, the enterprise will step up and pay for these and provide specialized solutions like Sd-Wan, for instance.
Yeah, because I see a challenge, imagine there's the wife, there's the kids, and
exactly
accessing that bandwidth, and the business is maybe taking, I don't know what percent, and the kids are heavily consumers of big apps like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and those are bandwidth consumers. So at the end, I understand the concerns about the company. Say, okay, I'm paying full percent of the bandwidth, but for the business you use maybe 10-20%. So I think that's maybe a technology question or development maybe that needs to be considered in the future.
Exactly, or double broadband lines, as my colleague Madison talked about. So we have a number of telecom operators that started providing these packages with two broadband, for instance, BT in the UK, with one broadband line dedicated specifically for work, the other broadband line dedicated to the other household users, from gaming to streaming and so on. And providers can also add on top of that cloud storage, cybersecurity, and so on. But critically, who is going to pay is a question that will gain importance over the next months and years with this new working environment.
Perfect. Houda and Madison, time is up. I wish I could make more questions, but we need to follow up with the agenda. So I appreciate your time. I think it's good night for you. So I appreciate your time and support. Thank you to Globaldata for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.